Upcoming up next here for the presentation of the James Keller Award, which was named in honor of the Christopher founder. We're ready to go with this. In recognizing individuals who put their faith into action and change the world for the better. And now to present the award, please welcome back Father Jonathan Morris. Father Jonathan.
So Father James Keller, the founder of the Christophers, I had the blessing over this last year to read so many of his writings. And we mentioned that this is the 66th anniversary of the awards. And let's just think for a moment whether or not 66 years from now, anybody will be celebrating awards in our name. The answer is no. Okay, to be honest, right? And the fact that we're celebrating these awards in the honor of the name of Father Keller means that he had an incredible intuition, and that is that you and I truly can make a difference. And the work of the board of the Christophers, some of whom are present here tonight, is carrying that forth. And that's why I think it's very, makes a lot of sense to pick out somebody else who is living that same spirit, a spirit that can be carried forth for many, many years to come. This past Sunday, we celebrated all the wonderful qualities that our mothers bring to our lives. But tonight, we're going to honor the world-changing power of a father's love. That father is Patrick Donohue. A few days after his daughter, Sarah Jane, was born healthy, he got devastating news. Sarah Jane's baby nurse had shaken her so violently that 60% of the rear cortex of her brain was destroyed. Doctors gave Patrick no hope that she would ever walk or talk. The incident got lots of news coverage, thankfully, here in New York City. And eventually the reporters moved on, of course, to different stories because that's the reality of our world. We have to move on. There are other things happening. But a father never moves on. And Patrick, you never moved on. You were determined to make a difference for Sarah Jane, and not only for Sarah Jane, but for others who suffered, who have suffered and will suffer similar trauma. Even though Patrick is a lawyer, he started reading about the human brain and discovered how little medical science actually knew about it. He learned that 80,000 American youth are hospitalized each year with brain injuries, and 11,000 of these young people die. As a result, he spearheaded the creation of a standardized system of care that is now accessible to millions of families. Patrick also realized that kids like Sarah Jane need a school that is uniquely suited to their needs. With help from experts, he launched the International Academy of Hope. It is New York City's first school for children with brain-based disorders, and Patrick hopes, and we have no doubt that he will, develop more schools like this nationally and globally. So where does Patrick find his strength to do all of this? We don't have to look very far, and we certainly don't have to imagine, because he has said it himself and he's lived it himself. Very often and publicly, he has credited the Serenity Prayer. You know it. The prayer that says, quote, "God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things that I can, and the wisdom to know the difference." Doesn't that sound a little bit like what Father Keller said? That it's better to light one candle than to curse the darkness? Because of Patrick Donohue's courage and wisdom, the Christophers are happy to honor him with our James Keller Award for being a voice for Sarah Jane, no doubt, but also for all the children and families that previously had nowhere to turn, and now they have a place to turn. Patrick Donohue, congratulations.
Thank you very much, Father Ernie, the board, and everybody that's here. It is truly humbling to be standing here, being honored for the work that I do. It is true that as Sarah Jane's dad, it's my job and responsibility to do what I do. I'm most humbled with the people that I work with on a daily basis and that work with the foundation across the world. They're walking angels on the planet because they actually get up every day and choose to do what they do. And there's a difference. As was mentioned, Sarah Jane was shaken by her baby nurse when she was 5 days old, broke 4 ribs, both collarbones. And about a year into the daily routine of taking care of her, I did read up as much as I could on neuroplasticity, neuroinformatics, anything I get my hands on about the brain. I can humbly admit I only understood about 10% of what I was reading. But I quickly realized how little we knew about the brain, never mind the developing brain. We probably only know about 5% of what we'll eventually know. To put into context, think about how much we knew about heart disease in the 1850s. That's what we know about the brain today. And on top of it, realize how fractured and siloed the field of medicine and neuroscience was. And that's when I launched the Sarah Jane Brain Foundation. And it's quickly grown into one of the leading organizations in the world working to prevent, identify, treat, and eventually cure the leading cause of death and disability for kids, young adults in this country and around the world. The numbers you heard, 80,000 hospitalizations, 11,000 deaths. It's about 765,000 emergency room visits every year, 2 to 3 million incidents just in the US alone. To put into context, there's about 24,000 new cases of autism and about 56,000 new cases of HIV every year. But those numbers actually aren't the numbers that keep me up at night. You take little Susie, little Johnny, say they're 8 years old, they're playing soccer, they fall out of a tree and they get a concussion, which people are now realizing is a brain injury. And 6 years later, when these kids are in high school and relying upon the executive functioning of their brain for the first time, these kids are going from A students to C students, but they're being misdiagnosed as ADHD, behavioral problems, drug problems, family problems, when the underlying issue was a brain injury they sustained 6 years earlier. It was never tracked or treated properly. So the CDC's done a couple of studies, one of them out in Minnesota, where they showed over 80% of the kids in our juvenile detention system have some form of a brain injury. 80%. I mean, these numbers are staggering. In Texas alone, you got over 106,000 youth under 18 in the juvie system. That means you have 80, 90, 100,000 kids with brain injuries, not being identified, not being treated. Then you're dumping them into an adult criminal justice system, and we wonder why we have such a high risk rate of crime. So several years ago, Congress was doing hearings on the NFL and concussions. They did one on youth sports concussions, so they invited me to speak, and I laid all these statistics out, and their members of Congress, their eyeballs were popping out of their head. And one of the staff members pulled me aside afterward, and she said, you know, I've been working in the field of domestic violence for 16 years. She showed me the scar on her face. It was clearly personal to her. She said, you just made a connection as never made before that many of these women who are suffering from domestic violence have brain injuries. And I wanted to scream at her and say, yes, NIH has actually done studies that have shown that 90% of domestic violence victims are battered and are suffering from head injuries. And then I wanted to explain to her that over 50% of homeless, brain injuries, over 50% of suicide, brain injuries. So when you start looking at the impact that brain injury has in our society, not just in kids and youths, but also in adults, it is the leading public health crisis of our time. The impact it has, not to diminish any other problem, dwarfs cancer, dwarfs heart disease, dwarfs obesity. The impact it has on every single family. The estimates are about 80 million Americans are walking around with some residual impact of a previous brain injury. Obviously not all as severe as Sarah Jane. They may have some sleep issues, some memory issues, some concentration issues, balance issues. The underlying issues are those brain injuries. So the foundation is working to standardize care across the country and the world. And as was mentioned, we launched the first and only school in New York City for kids with a brain injury, the International Academy of Hope. One of the reasons why I'm humbled to accept this award is that this room, this organization is just filled with hope. That's what you guys have been doing for decades, and you do every day. So this is just one night out of 365 that the Christophers drives that focus and mission of hope. One anecdotal story, when Sarah Jane was born, we happened to save her cord blood, which is her umbilical cord blood, which has stem cells in it. And several years back, when she was 5, we got invited down to Duke University to reinfuse her stem cells, her umbilical cord blood, because there's some efficacy of treating kids with brain injuries. And so I started a worldwide novena to Mother Teresa. For those who aren't familiar, Mother Teresa needs one more confirmed miracle in order for her to get her sainthood. So we started a worldwide novena to Mother Teresa, and I carry my Mother Teresa with me everywhere I go, because Sarah Jane has a heck of an advocate upstairs, basically knocking on the guy's door saying, I want my wings, get this kid walking and talking. So as soon as Sarah Jane starts walking and talking, Mother Teresa will get her wings. I wanted to conclude my remarks with one of the prayers that is attributed to St. Francis of Assisi that the Christophers message drives, and if I can just read the prayer. Lord, make me an instrument of your peace. Where there is hatred, let me sow love. Where there is injury, pardon. Where there is doubt, faith. Where there is despair, hope. Where there is darkness, light. And where there is sadness, joy. O divine Master, grant that I may not so much seek to be consoled as to console, to be understood as to understand, to be loved as to love. For it is pardoning that we are pardoned, and it is in dying that we are born to eternal life. If I can leave you with my philosophy that drives me every day, and I have plenty of moments of despair. I can go sit in the corner and start crying. That's not going to help Sarah Jane. But whenever I have those dark moments, I immediately go to this very simple philosophy that things work out best for those who make the best out of the way things work out. Thank you all for the work that you do.
Thank you, Patrick. We honor you, Sarah Jane, and your foundation, and I've got your card here, the International Academy of Hope. We're going to do this story, and it'll be on Fox 5 soon, so thank you so much, and congratulations, and your story was very moving. I want to bring back somebody tonight who